Hello everyone. Are you ready to hear the truth? Are you ready to acknowledge why everything is such a mess, such a chaos? Morning. Are you ready to acknowledge that there is a reason that you can still go back to? You have been unreasonable. You have been overly emotional. And you have been, of course, involved in negative emotions. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't positive emotions. If it was positive emotions, you wouldn't have been overly emotional. You're only overly emotional in negative emotions. So, but are you ready to be rational? And yeah, are you ready to have positive emotions? So are you ready to leave behind the negative emotions? Because if you want to have positive emotions, then you gotta leave behind the negative emotions. Yeah? But can you? Are you willing to? Can you let go of your grievances and all your hate and all your disgust and all your trouble, all your frustration? Because if you want to hear the truth is something really positive. The truth is something reasonable, something rational. Yeah. And if you don't want to be like that, then there's no truth for you. And if you were wondering by any chance why there is no truth in your life, why truth doesn't matter to you anymore, it is because you haven't been rational and you haven't had these positive emotions that I'm talking about. You have had assumptions about that. You have had pretensions about that. You have had all kind of fantasies about that. But you haven't had real positive reasoning that I'm talking about. And you couldn't. But because there's a reason why you can't reason. Yeah, that sounds maybe really weird, but there's a reason why you cannot reason. Your way of reasoning is not reasoning. It is just all based on negative emotions. So it's not really reasoning. Everything you reason on your negative emotions is actually emotional. Yeah. So you disguise your negativity with reasoning. You've never even looked into this. Yeah, you can call it rationalizing, but your whole way of reasoning isn't reasoning. It is just being very emotional, being very hateful, being very resentful, being very dissatisfied, being frustrated, being aggressive, being desperate also. So I'm going back again to my initial question. Are you ready to hear the truth? Are you ready to hear the positive, rational truth? The truth that I have, the truth that I can have, the truth that I say, the truth that I can say because I listen to myself. Yeah. I speak in such a way that I listen to myself. Did you hear what I just said? I speak in such a way that I listen to myself. So, yeah. You don't speak in such a way that you listen to yourself. And the fact that people do not speak in such a way that they listen to themselves determines that everybody is involved in what I call disembodied language. Yeah, in which others should listen to you, right? Others should listen to you, and you should listen to others, of course. I mean, that's all part of it. If others should listen to you, then you should listen to others, right? Because it goes both ways, right? We listen to each other. But you don't listen to yourself. And nobody does. And that is the rational, positive reason why the world is in such a turmoil, while your life is such a turmoil. Because your life is just representing what's happening with everybody. Yeah? Your misery and your struggle and your frustration and your conflict is no different from anybody else's conflict. Everybody else is having the same dreadful life. Yeah, and they can have their pretensions, and some of them are better at pretending than others. But at the end of the day, when we are going to consider the difference between the person like me, who is able to speak in such a way that he is hearing himself, yeah? And I hear myself, but I also hear the dog that is barking. I hear all the barking that's going on around me. Of course I hear all the noise, all the disembodied language that's going on. I've been hearing it for 66 years. Yeah? I know what I'm talking about. I know that I have embodied language. Yeah? I hear myself. And I speak in that particular way because it is a way of speaking which makes us listen to ourselves. You don't do that. Nobody does that. And this is what creates all human problems. And I know you can't believe that. I know you can't accept that. You can't handle that. You can't even consider that. Yeah? It's too simple of an explanation. It is too... the life is way more complex. No, it's not. And your argument about complexity is a huge cover-up of the simplicity that I'm talking about. Yeah? Why is nobody catching on with this? I mean, everybody should be able to talk with themselves and hear their own voice and realize, like, wow, when I listen to myself, when I speak to listen to myself, with myself, when I speak with myself in order to be able to listen to myself, when I do that, I say positive things to myself. I say reasonable things to myself. My reasoning is different from when I'm not listening to myself. Oh my gosh, all of a sudden I am more reasonable. Yeah, I wasn't reasonable when I wasn't listening to myself. I wasn't feeling positive when I wasn't listening to myself. I couldn't be positive when I wasn't listening to myself, and I couldn't be reasonable when I wasn't listening to myself. Yeah. Everybody can do this. And why haven't you? Well, it is because you are just too identified with all your problems. Yeah, all your struggles and all your tensions and all your anxieties and all your frustrations. Everything else is more important than this. So for instance, let's say for instance here in the United States where I live, I'm a US citizen, there is the tension between Republicans and Democrats, between the left wing and the right wing. And you can endlessly talk about that and be involved with that, and that determines people there, that consumes people their whole lives. And likewise, there's people who have religion and they are believing in God, or they believe in Allah, or they believe in something else, they believe in reincarnation or whatever. Yeah. And then there's people who are presumably atheists, who don't believe in anything. Well, if they were starting to listen to themselves while they speak, it would become very clear that these people who say they don't believe in anything, who say that they are atheists, they still believe in inner language. Oh yeah, they believe in having thoughts. They believe in ideas. They believe in inner speech, that they can talk with themselves, and they can talk with themselves without making a sound, without letting anybody know. They have inner conversation, private speech. You might as well just have an imaginary conversation with unseen others, because that private conversation that you imagine yourself to be having inside your head is just as much part of your imagination and morning, part of your disembodied language, as is your belief in some higher power. I don't believe in anything. I believe in the overt nature of language. Yeah? That means that language, as perceived by someone like me who has embodied language, is overt always. There's no inner language. Yeah. So that is also part of the reason why there is such a mess. Because all these ideas, all these ideologies that we're talking about, all these theories that we're talking about, all these different narratives that people are talking about, presumably they have something to do with human thought. Yeah, with what you are thinking. But it has nothing to do with thinking. There is no such thing as thinking. There doesn't exist anything like thinking. Yeah, you have never reasoned that one through. But if you accept that language is always overt, that means that you can say it, you can hear it, you can write it, you can read it. If you accept that there are no words inside your brain, no train of thought, no, not even a metaphor, no, there's nothing inside your brain resembling language. There is only neurons firing and neurotransmitters, and there's brain cells, but there's no language inside your chest, in your heart. No, speaking from the heart. No, there is no language inside of any human being. There never was, and there never will be. So here you have a totally unreasonable fact about language that everybody seems to completely ignore, which is the simple, irrefutable fact that all language is overt. Yeah? And that covert language doesn't exist. Inner language doesn't exist. So what does it mean? It means that all the problems which you believe to be having, they are not true, because it is just your belief. Yeah. Once you realize that there is no inner language, you are without any problems. The problems everybody keeps having and believes to be having are all problems of a misunderstanding of language. Yeah. and others have talked about it, and you can talk about others, but that doesn't solve the problem. That doesn't even address what the problem is. It cannot get to it. Yeah. Also, when you still, as I have said in my previous videos, when you still perceive embodied language, yeah, listening to yourself while you speak, or yeah, you can say listening to yourself, but that's kind of putting the horse behind the wagon. Yeah, as if listening comes first. No, speaking comes first. You speak in order to be able to listen. So, in that sense, embodied language is not the solution to your problems. Yeah, I've said this before, but I need to say it again, and you need to begin to say this to yourself as well. Because as long as you are looking for a solution to a problem, then you are still busy with disembodied language. In embodied language, there is no problem. There is no need to look for a solution to a problem. The problems are solved in embodied language. And so, reason, as perceived with embodied language, is without any problems. 2 and 2 is 4. There's no problem. 3 and 3 is 6. There is no problem. It's just, you know it. So, so here you are. I hear my wheels make this particular sound today. I'll try to make it go away next time. But for now we have to listen to that sound, which I do not particularly like, but what can I do? In a little while I'll be riding my bicycle over the gravel path again, and then you probably won't hear it anymore. So, going back again to what is causing the world's problems. Well, what's causing the world's problems is that there's no such thing as thinking, and everybody talks about thinking, and thinking doesn't exist. There's no such thing as inner language, and everybody keeps talking about the imaginary inner language, but it doesn't even exist. So if we were true to technology, if we were true to science, if we were true to reality, we would all just be aboard that no, the earth is not flat, the earth is round. No, earth is not the center of the universe. That's all in the past. If we were all understanding about what language is, we would all just be able to say 2 and 2 is 4, and that's it. There is no problem. We would be able to reason, and we would also be able to say that, okay, reason is, of course, a possibility. Good morning. A possibility of language. Language is reasoning. Language itself is reasoning. I've never said that before, but I'd like to explore that. That expressing what you are able to express, that is your reasoning. So let's say, for instance, here you listen to me, right? I only have the words that I have. I don't have a claim to have a enormous vocabulary or something like that. My language is relatively simple, but it doesn't matter. I use my language in the way that I am because I'm listening to myself. Because I speak to listen to myself. So in addition to what I'm saying, I keep producing a sound which I like to hear. Yeah? And so with my way of talking, I produce embodied language. At least under the circumstances that I'm in right now, right? I mean, this is my morning ride, and yeah, I cannot always be like this because most people wouldn't let me. Most people do not know how to be like this, and so I cannot be like this with them. You can only be like this with me if you yourself know how to be like this. So this is why I say to everybody, okay, go and experiment in 2025. Just begin to talk and see if what you are saying, hear for yourself if it is something that you'd like to hear or not. Is what you're saying something that you like to hear? Do you like to listen to yourself with what you're saying? Does what you say make you listen to yourself? Yeah? That is what embodied language is all about. So, I hope you're going to do that, and I hope in 2025 you are going to get to it, and then you're going to have some experience in this 2025. And then in 2026, maybe we can talk with each other and have embodied language together. Yeah? I hope you do that. Because that would be a possibility that we can then enjoy. Because you have done what it took. You've stopped your disembodied language. You've stopped talking in such a way that you didn't like what you sounded like. You've stopped talking in such a way that you didn't want to hear what you yourself were saying. Yeah, that's the kind of conversation you're into. That's the conversation everybody's into. Can you imagine that? It's incomprehensible. It is unbelievable. But everybody unknowingly engages in a way of talking in which they produce a sound, in which they engage in a way of talking which they themselves do not like to hear. Yeah, that is what disembodied language is. And and that is causing, of course, enormous problems. You never overcome these problems as long as, you never overcome these problems as long as disembodied language hasn't been stopped. And so overcoming these problems is not a matter of having embodied language. No. Overcoming these problems means stopping your disembodied language and knowing that, I was not listening to myself. That is the way of talking I was used to. That is what I've been doing all along. I gotta not do that anymore. Yeah. So solving your problems is inevitably a matter of not doing what you did which caused the problem. That is reasoning with language. Do you get that? It's so simple, but it is. You don't want to hear this because you always make everything so complex. But this is what it is. You did something with your disembodied language which caused and maintained your problem. And once you stop doing that, the problem is gone. There is no problem. The problem only existed because you did what you did. So you did something while you were engaging in disembodied language, and you did all kinds of other things, yeah. You had your disembodied language, but you had all your behaviors that went together with your disembodied language. And these behaviors, yeah, they were all unreasonable. They couldn't be reasonable in the way that they would be reasonable if you were listening to yourself, if you were reasoning from a positive point of view. And so, look, let's say for instance you have a problem. It doesn't matter what the problem is. What matters is this problem is something negative. Yeah? You want it to be solved. Yeah, I don't know, something is annoying you, something is bothering you. It is a problem. Yeah? When you say something is a problem, you're talking about something negative. Yeah. Everything that is a problem is something negative. So you're busy with something negative while you're solving the problem, and supposedly solving the problem is positive, right? Solving the problem is positive. You've solved your problem. But wait. If you are having embodied language, there is no problem. There is reality, yes, but reality is not a problem. And there is the way in which language describes. Yeah, your language describes the reality. You describe your experience, describes what it is that's going on in your life. Your language. And so, to the extent that your language is describing the problem, there's never a solution to your problem. You're always busy with the problem. And to the extent that your language is reasonable, that you are positive also about your language, because you are speaking in such a way that you're listening to yourself, there is no problem. Everything is revealed, everything is expressed, everything. Your language is sufficient. Who you are is sufficient. That's another way of saying that you can be yourself. Yeah, you can be yourself. You are, yeah, you're good enough as you are. You don't need to be somebody who you are not to use your language correctly. Yeah. You don't need to be some sort of an intellectual giant or something. Yeah, this is another one of those things. You have to be very smart or very accomplished or very, yeah. People make it seem as if, yeah. As if people make it seem as if they are rational. But no, why would anyone pretend to be rational or, come off as somebody really rational if they were having positive emotions? They would not have that pretension. So as I was saying before, the usual way of talking in which we do not listen to ourselves, which is the problem of everything that human beings are struggling with, it is always based on negative emotions. And it is based on the language that expresses these negative emotions. Once that language stops, once you realize like, oh, wow, that's the language in which I do not listen to myself. Once that language stops, you have embodied language, and you have the language that doesn't have any problem. The language which describes your reality in such a way that all your problems are solved. I'm inclined to say that that I can't think of anything to say, but I'm not thinking anything. And this is something very, very interesting that I am myself, of course, also completely intrigued by. that, that what I say is true. You know, when I walk when I walk calmly, the mosquitoes are landing on me. So I'm gonna ride my bicycle again. Morning.